Hi, I'm Barry Sahajian, and this is the book I wrote in 1986. It was one of my most popular books. I spent a lot of time on it to lay it out meticulously in a graduated manner, and I got a great response from it from my students, and I sold a lot of books. So I figured now, although I've already taken some excerpts from the book and published them on tutorials, I want to go through the entire book, which isn't that long, but it covers a lot of the material that really helped me out in the beginning when I was starting to learn theory and relate it to the music I was playing. I'm not going to be reading verbatim from the written book that you see, but you will be able to download that on my Patreon page and read it yourself. I am going to just tell it like it is, how I know it, and use the illustrations from the book to help me out. And once in a while, I will read verbatim to express the meaning of whatever points of theory I should be discussing. So up here, you have a piano, a keyboard, and there's white keys and black keys. And you notice between E and F and B and C, there's no black key. It's just a half step in between those. And the rest of the notes between black and white keys, when you play a black key and then you play to a white key or vice versa, you have just played a half step on a piano. On a guitar or a bass, it is one fret to the next. Those are half steps. 2 half steps equal a whole step. On the piano, it would be 3 notes with a black note in between. The 2 white notes would be a whole step apart. And once again, between E and F, there is no black key, so it's only a half step between B and C and E and F. Let's take a look at now what happens when you go up to the key of F, which is a fourth away from C, C, D, E, F, and is also in the first key in a cycle of fourths. We start on F. Now we take that lower Tetra chord into consideration, which is a whole step, and a half step. So look at what we have here. We have from F to G, a whole step. From G to A, a whole step. Now you have a B flat there. You have to have a B flat because the interval on the fourth note of the Tetra chord is a half step. Whole step, half step. F to G, whole step. G to A, whole step. A to B flat, half step. Now you have your first flat. It's a B flat. Now let's take a look at this another way. I could right now show you the circle of fourths, but I feel the circle of fourths is a little more confusing than having this little graph I have here. And this may help you in another way to understand it instead of looking at the circle, which does work, and it can be the best way for some. But I think you need reinforcement. If you really have this to sink into your mind, you need to look at it different ways. And there are many different ways to look at circles of fourths and fifths and a lot of relative harmony. We look at this little graph and we see C, F, B flat, E flat, A flat, D flat, G flat, C flat. Each key is a fourth away from the previous key. And each key progresses adding another flat. And the thing about it is, every time the flat is added, it's added on the 4th degree of the major scale you're in. For instance, in the key of C, there's no sharps or flats. You go into the key of F, there's one flat that's on B flat, and that will be the 4th degree. F, G, A, B flat. Okay, your next key would be B flat. There's 2 flats, B flat and E flat. So you're in the key of B flat, so the next fourth is added is an E flat, which is the 4th degree of the B flat scale. B flat, C, D, E flat. And then you go to the next key, which is E flat. You have 3 flats, B flat, E flat, A flat. Now watch this. In the key of E flat, you count the first 4 notes of the Tetra chord would be E flat, F, G, A flat. A flat will be the 4th degree of the E flat scale. So as you go around the circle of fourths, each new flat in each new key, a fourth away, is on the 4th degree. So that is universal. I could go through the rest of them, but I think you get the idea. And the more ways you can relate to these things, the more way you can understand them and use them. And it's a little bit of a repetitive learning process to get it in your mind because it is complicated. Let's take the first sharp key in the circle of fifths, which is G. it has one sharp. So we look at this, and we have our setup with the two tetrachords, the upper and the lower, and you see a G to an A is a whole step, an A to a B is a whole step, a B to a C is a half step, a D to an E is a whole step, and then an E to an F sharp is also a whole step. There is your first sharp. Note the first sharp happens on the 7th degree of the G scale. And you will see that each additional sharp as you go through the circle of fifths is added on the 7th degree of the new key that is a fifth away from the subsequent key. I know that's a lot to take in, but after a while, if you see this pattern, it makes sense. And when we go into other parts of the theory, like chord theory and modes and everything, it always relates back to these same details that you learn now. And I think that some students, maybe even myself at one point, you say, why am I learning circles of fifths and fourths? But it just shapes this form that gives everything else you learn support to understand fuller and broaden your musical horizon. So let's take a look at the graph, the same as we did in the flat keys. So you have from 1 to 7 sharps, and the first key is a G. It has one sharp, which happens on the 7th degree of the G scale in the key of G. So let's move up a fifth to the next key on the circle of fifths. It has two sharps, F sharp and C sharp. Now let's take another note right here, and we notice that the new sharp, which is the second sharp of the new key a fifth away from the G chord or G scale, is a fifth from the first sharp in G. Everything works in fifths, everything. How the sharps are added, how the keys travel through the circle. So anyway, we have F sharp and C sharp in the key of D. C sharp, once again, would be the 7th degree in the key of D major, or the 7th note of the scale, if you want to look at it that way. So as you travel through the circle of fifths, adding each new key, which is added a fifth away from the subsequent key, you get a new sharp, which is a fifth away from the last sharp of the subsequent key. So in key of A, we got 3 sharps, F sharp, C sharp, and G sharp. G sharp is a half step away from A, which makes it a major 7th, and that's where all our new sharps land, going through the circle of fifths in each new key. And that sharp is a fifth away from the last sharp in the key of D, which was 2 sharps. So you can see the pattern now. And this pattern, like I said, will work for you, but it may be confusing at first. So the only way to learn this stuff is to go over it and over it and over it. And you can't just go over the same way. You've got to relate it in different ways to build an understanding in your mind. I went to Berklee College of Music, and I'll repeat myself. Maybe I told you this before. I worked for 10 years, almost full time. I almost worked in my teens, from like 12 years old to 19 when I started thinking about going to Berklee. And I knew nothing, practically. I just knew shapes of chords and triads and grooves and rhythms. And I got through, and I played in nightclubs almost every night of the week. And it wasn't like I didn't want to learn. The learning possibilities were not there. The bass was still a young instrument. Not a whole bunch of people played it. As a matter of fact, at that time, all the upright players were losing jobs because the new bass, electric bass, was able to be louder in the big bands. You know, they didn't have to rely, they didn't have a whole bunch of sound equipment, and amplifiers were, you know, in the infant stages of really being effective. It was in the beginning. And no teachers. I tried studying with a guitar teacher, and it didn't work out so well. He was a guitar player, and, you know, he He knew enough theory and everything, of course. He was a good guitar player, but teaching bass, I don't know. And so I had a tough time. I finally got to Berkeley. What a revelation. But what I'm trying to say is they taught me these things I'm teaching you, but I didn't do it in like a tutorial, an hour tutorial where they give you the whole 9 yards all at once. They did it week by week, and they progressively went into these keys. Each key went into it in all different aspects of each key, and always relating back to the circle of fifths and the Tetra chords, always. So sooner or later, you get to the point where you almost rely on this. And that's what I'm going to try to do here. I'm going to try to introduce a new key and really get into it heavily, not only just the sharps and flats in the circle and things like that, but, you know, the relative chords, the seventh chords, the diatonic chords in each key, and always being related back to this Tetra chords and circle of fifths and sharps and flats, and you know, eventually you evolve into diatonic is only the beginning. Most songs are not diatonic. They change keys, they add substitutes, and they add modal interchange and all kinds of different things to make them sound interesting. You know, a diatonic tune is Happy Birthday, you know, for instance, or something like that. Anyway, that's what I'm going to try to do. If you like this video, please subscribe. Hit the bell to be notified of all the new videos yet to come. Like and comment. Drop by my Patreon page. I'll have these pages here that you're seeing with the explanations and the diagrams, and you can download them there. And I want to also mention this was a book, still is a book, but I'm revising it and cleaning it up, and I'm going to put it back for sale in a very short period if you want to buy the book. It'll be available in paper and as a digital download. So I thank you for stopping by. I'm going to come back real soon, and we're going to continue on a step at a time, just like I learned. Thank you for coming by. Hope to see you again.